Imagine a truth so fundamental that it holds existence together. Avicenna, a mind centuries ahead of his time, spent his life seeking this truth. He called it the necessary existent, an essence beyond belief, beyond evidence, a reality that simply is. Join me as we explore this timeless journey, an invitation to uncover the very essence of existence. To Avicenna, God was not just a theological idea, but a profound philosophical reality, what he called the necessary existent. Unlike anything in the world, the necessary existent is unique, self-sustaining, and inevitable. But what exactly does this mean? In our world, most things depend on something else. Trees need water, humans need air. Every effect, every existence around us relies on conditions to come into being. In Avicenna's view, these things are contingent. They could either exist or not. If we trace this chain of dependence far enough, we arrive at a question. What is the source that doesn't depend on anything else? This question was central to Avicenna's philosophy. He concluded that there must be something that simply is, a being that does not rely on causes, does not begin, and cannot cease. He called this being the necessary existent. Only such a reality could sustain all contingent beings. Avicenna's argument begins with a clear distinction: contingency and necessity. For him, all things that exist in our world are contingent. They could either be or not be. Think of a river. It may exist, but only if rain fills it. And even rain is contingent on clouds, weather, and more. It's a chain without end unless we reach a source that simply exists by necessity. This necessary existent, Avicenna argued, must exist because without it, nothing else would. In his words, the necessary existent is not one option among many. It is that which cannot fail to exist. In a world where everything we know is fragile, changing, and dependent, the necessary existent is a foundation that cannot break. But here's where Avicenna's philosophy takes us deeper. He argued that the necessary existent cannot be more than one. If it were, each would need to have something that the other lacks, making them dependent or limited. For Avicenna, this was impossible. He believed multiplicity is the language of limitation. The necessary existent has no limitation. This means it must be absolutely singular. Imagine a single, boundless reality, beyond division, beyond limitation. This, he claimed, was the essence of God, not as we picture God, but as the only reality that truly must be. In this vision, the necessary existent is the ultimate unity, the origin of all things, boundless and infinite. Avicenna believed that everything in existence flowed from this unity like light from the sun, inseparable, yet distinct in form. He said, God is the one who needs nothing, the one who completes everything, and the one whose essence is existence. Here's a thought that defies conventional understanding. For all contingent beings, there is a difference between what they are and that they are. A tree, for example, could be imagined without it existing in reality. But for the necessary existent, Avicenna taught, there is no such distinction. Essence and existence are one. In his words, in the necessary existent, there is no distinction between what it is and that it is. It exists, not as a possibility, but as a necessity. Its essence is existence itself. This unity of essence and existence elevates the necessary existent to a realm beyond our everyday reality. It's a being so pure that it is not simply alive, it is life. Not just existing in space and time, but sustaining space and time as a very expression of its nature. Avicenna invites us to see God not just as a distant creator, but as the ground of all existence. The necessary existent is not an object of belief, but a truth woven into the fabric of reality. It's the silence within silence, the source beneath every source. Avicenna argued that the necessary existent is entirely simple, undivided in its being. Unlike everything else that we know, which can be broken down into parts or elements, this necessary existent remains indivisible. Its unity is so absolute that it cannot even be imagined as multiple or divided. He explains, the necessary existent has no parts, no composition, and no plurality. It is pure simplicity, without division or distinction within itself. This simplicity is essential, Avicenna taught, because anything that can be divided or analyzed into parts is ultimately dependent on those parts. But the necessary existent, by definition, depends on nothing. Imagine a light that fills every space, yet has no source from which it shines. A light that is pure, whole, and indivisible. In Avicenna's philosophy, the necessary existent is like this light, a presence that fills all of reality without needing anything to sustain it. If we accept that the necessary existent is self-sustaining, Avicenna challenges us to see it as the cause of everything else. He argues that all beings must ultimately rely on this foundational source. For Avicenna, the necessary existent is not just a remote, isolated truth, but the very essence that flows into every created thing. He stated, "All contingent beings depend on the necessary existent as their ultimate cause. It is from this source that all reality springs, bound by a single, unbreakable chain of existence." This means that every moment, every heartbeat, every thought, all trace back to this ultimate reality. In our everyday lives, we see ourselves as separate individuals, isolated by our needs, desires, and limitations. But Avicenna's necessary existent invites us to perceive a deeper connection, a binding force that unites all things as a single expression of existence. Avicenna invites us to consider the nature of everything around us, each object, each being, each moment. All of these are contingent. They depend on something else to bring them into being. And yet, if every being is dependent, there must be something that exists by necessity, something that requires nothing else. Otherwise, existence itself would be an illusion. He reminds us, if there is no necessary existent, then everything is in vain, for nothing would exist of its own accord. This profound dependency is what links all things to a single, unbroken source. Avicenna's philosophy is not merely a theoretical construct, but a lens through which we can see the world. If we view every object as connected to this source, life itself takes on a new meaning. We begin to see the world not as a collection of isolated beings, but as one vast, interconnected reality. In Avicenna's view, there is something unique about the necessary existent. In all other beings, essence and existence are separate. Its very essence is existence itself. This unity of essence and existence sets the necessary existent apart from all else, elevating it beyond our ordinary understanding of reality. For Avicenna, this insight wasn't just about defining God, but about understanding the unique nature of reality. It suggests that, at its deepest level, reality is not a collection of separate things, but a unified, boundless existence. What does it mean for us, as human beings, to be connected to this necessary existent? If all beings ultimately rely on this single source, then in some way we too are expressions of this ultimate reality. Avicenna invites us to ask, if all beings are bound by the necessary existent, what does that make us? In other words, how deeply are we connected to this foundational truth? Do we merely exist as individuals, or are we part of a larger unity? For Avicenna, understanding this connection was not just a philosophical exercise, but a path to deeper meaning. In realizing our dependence on the necessary existent, we recognize our place within the broader tapestry of existence. We are not isolated but interwoven with a timeless, boundless reality.